Welcome to the Live Free, Love Life podcast, where we discuss how to create more freedom so we can love our lives no matter what we're going through. Hello, my amazing, beautiful friends. Welcome to today's podcast episode of the Live Free, Love Life podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing a book. Now, as you know, I teach that freedom is the only condition for happiness. And the way to break free is through cherishing yourself, accepting things as they are, and taking responsibility. Now, one of my favorite ways to reinforce these principles is through reading. Our thoughts create our reality. And by filling my mind with insightful, empowering ideas, I give myself the very best opportunity to build an amazing reality. Reading also offers me different perspectives on the same message, helping me understand concepts on a deeper level. And sometimes a single sentence can resonate so profoundly because it's phrased in just the right way for my brain to fully grasp it. And that is why I want to start introducing you to books that align with the principles I teach. So hopefully hearing ideas from other voices, other perspectives might give you the exact understanding you need to be able to implement these into your life. So the first book we're going to discuss is called Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. Now, in this book, Tara beautifully combines the principles of cherishing yourself and accepting things as they are. So let's dive in and explore her wisdom. Now, first, I have a disclaimer. This is not my favorite book. And I actually found it challenging to get through sometimes. It's not one of those books you pick up and can't put it down. So why am I sharing it with you, especially as the first book? That's kind of funny. Because the content has the power to transform your life, regardless of its entertainment value. The principles in this book are foundational. And if you take them seriously and implement them into your life, it will undoubtedly improve. There is no question about that. Another aspect I don't love about this book is how the author often describes meditation, which might turn off the average reader and make them lose interest. So let's briefly touch on meditation. I believe everyone can benefit from daily meditation. I have a new journal coming out on Amazon, which you're definitely going to want to go check out. And in it, we start with state activities. You know, on this podcast, we've been talking about how important it is to purposely take responsibility for your state. And you get to pick your state activities. You get to pick the things that are going to impact you the most. But I say meditation it just should be on everyone's list. It's not a should because I don't believe in shoulds, but I highly recommend it for every single person. The problem is a lot of meditation experts talk about meditation in a way that makes you feel like you've got to be like one of those hippie people who like goes off and lives in the desert or goes to 9-month-long retreats of silence and they just sit and meditate. Sometimes they talk about it in that way when really meditation is just about paying attention to yourself. So it's shifting your focus from the external world to your internal world. Many of us have spent our whole lives kind of ignoring what's happening internally. So when we meditate, we're just taking our focus off of what's happening out here and putting it on what's happening in here. We practice observing our thoughts so that we don't just automatically believe them and we don't indulge in them and we don't become a victim of them. We pay attention to how we feel, like what our emotions actually feel like in our body. You do not have to fit the stereotype of a typical meditator to practice meditation. So there's my disclaimer. Now let's talk about what I love about the book. First of all, let's talk about why even embrace radical acceptance. I'm curious what comes to your mind when you just hear the words radical acceptance. What do you think that means? So imagine a day in the life of Sarah, a busy mother and professional. She's juggling the demands of her career, managing household responsibilities, and trying to maintain a semblance of self-care. Despite her best efforts, she often feels overwhelmed, stressed, and disconnected. She constantly battles with self-critical thoughts, feeling like she's never doing enough and she's never good enough. This strain affects her relationships and her mental and physical health and leaves her feeling perpetually exhausted and unfulfilled. So here are her current struggles. Number one is emotional overload. Sarah frequently feels anxious and stressed, burdened by the weight of her responsibilities and self-imposed standards. Number two, self-criticism. She has an inner voice that constantly points out her perceived failures and shortcomings, leading to feelings of inadequacy and low self-esteem. Now, let me say one thing about self-criticism. I know a lot of people, they say, oh yeah, I don't do that. I don't have that negative self-talk. Mine does not sound like, Mindy, you're such an idiot. I can't believe you did that. Like that's what I would think of when someone says negative self-talk. What mine sounds like is, you could have done better, right? It's the little teeny voice that is just never quite good enough. You're never able to do enough. You're not nice enough. You're not genuine enough. You're not whatever. You're not you don't work hard enough. You never have enough time. It's like just it's never enough. So when I say self-criticism, I don't necessarily, some of your brains are really giving you a beat down in a voice that all of us would recognize as self-criticism. For others of you, it's just that little teeny voice that just isn't ever quite satisfied. Okay. Number 3, disconnection. Despite being surrounded by her family and colleagues, Sarah often feels isolated and misunderstood. Her relationships suffer as she struggles to communicate her needs and set boundaries. And number 4, health neglect. In prioritizing everyone else's needs, which I know a lot of you women out there are doing, Sarah neglects her own physical and mental health, leading to chronic fatigue and a sense of being physically and emotionally depleted. Without radical acceptance, Sarah's life is a cycle of striving for perfection and feeling like she's falling short. She is trapped in what this book talks about, what Tara talks about as the trance of unworthiness, constantly judging herself harshly and feeling disconnected from her true self. So the promise of radical acceptance is going to give Sarah 4 things. 1, emotional freedom. By embracing radical acceptance, Sarah can learn to treat herself with kindness and compassion, breaking free from the cycle of self-criticism and emotional turmoil. Number 2, inner peace. Accepting herself as she is allows Sarah to find peace within, reducing anxiety and stress. She can begin to appreciate her efforts and recognize her worth. Number 3, deeper connection. With the foundation of self-acceptance, Sarah can build stronger, more authentic relationships. She can communicate her needs clearly and establish healthy boundaries, leading to more fulfilling interactions. And the 4th one is holistic well-being. Prioritizing self-care and accepting her limitations helps Sarah nurture her physical and mental health. She becomes more energized, resilient, and capable of facing life's challenges with grace. By embracing radical acceptance, Sarah transforms her life. She moves from a place of constant striving and dissatisfaction to one of contentment and empowerment. She becomes the architect of her own optimal performance and well-being, which we talk a lot about on this podcast, unlocking a state of vitality, clarity, and deep fulfillment. So I said, think about what you think of when you think of radical acceptance. A lot of this book is about radically accepting yourself, every single part of you, the good and the bad, the strengths and the weaknesses, exactly who you are as you are right this moment. And then she also touches on accepting the world as it is, which is equally important. It's also much easier to do when you do the first part, which is accepting yourself as you are. And I think that's probably why she focuses in so much on accepting and loving yourself as you are. And remember, I said she beautifully combines cherishing yourself and acceptance. Those are the first 2 pillars of what we need to be happy. We have to accept reality as it is. That includes accepting ourselves as we are. And then she adds self-love into it. For her, that is just part of radical acceptance. The acceptance comes with radical love, like radically loving yourself as you accept yourself. So let's talk about what holds us back. One of the primary themes in radical acceptance is the concept of the trance of unworthiness. This is the pervasive feeling that we are not enough, that something is fundamentally wrong with us. Brach argues that the sense of unworthiness is a significant barrier to experiencing true happiness and fulfillment. And after coaching thousands and thousands of people, I am convinced that every single human on the planet struggles with the trance of unworthiness on some level. Not enough is part of the human condition. So if you think you're the only one out there that thinks they're not good enough, you are wrong, my friend. Every single person around you also thinks it on some level. Some are more aware of it than others. Those people that you look at and you think, no way they think that, for sure, because they have so much confidence. They have it too. I promise you, you're just not seeing it. It is part of the human condition. So where did the trance of unworthiness come from? This feeling often stems from early life experiences, societal expectations, and internalized criticisms. We grow up absorbing messages that shape our self-image, and often these messages are negative. Now, I'm going to add a little something that Tara does not talk about in this book. I also think part of the origin is our primitive brain. Its job is to keep us alive, and it is always looking for danger. Everywhere there could be danger, anything that could be a threat of any kind. And one of the areas that primitive brain looks at is us. It looks and says, oh no, you're not good enough right here. If you don't get this better, we're probably going to die. So I think that is also one of the other origins, and probably why every single person on the planet has some version of not enough and this trance of unworthiness, as she calls it. Now, what's the impact of this trance of unworthiness? Living under the weight of unworthiness can lead to chronic self-criticism, anxiety, depression, relationship struggles, and a constant state of dissatisfaction. So, how do we break free from the trance? In the book, Brach talks about mindfulness and self-compassion. So she emphasizes the importance of mindfulness and breaking free from the trance of unworthiness. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment. By being fully present, we can begin to recognize the negative thought patterns that contribute to our feelings of unworthiness. And practicing self-compassion means treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a dear friend or a child. Brach highlights the RAIN method, which we're going to talk about in a second. R is for recognize, A is for allow, I is for investigate, and N is for nurture. So it spells out RAIN. And she talks about this as a practical tool for developing self-compassion. So let's talk a little bit more about the RAIN method, which is our path to liberation. And I can tell you it works because in a minute, I'm going to tell you a story where I hadn't even read this book yet. And I totally followed this exact method. And I'm like, oh yeah, I love the way she puts it into this really easy to use acronym so that we can remember. Okay, so the R is for recognize. The first step in the RAIN process is to recognize what is happening in the present moment. This involves identifying the emotions, thoughts, and physical sensations that are present. Recognition is about acknowledging reality without trying to change it. Okay, that's the R in RAIN. The A is for allow. Allowing means letting the experience be what it is without resistance. This step is about accepting the reality of our emotions and thoughts without judgment. By allowing, we create space for healing and transformation. The I in RAIN is for investigate. Investigation involves exploring our inner experiences with curiosity and kindness. This step is about understanding the deeper layers of our emotions and thoughts. Brach encourages asking questions like, what is happening inside of me? And what do I need right now? And then the N in RAIN is for nurture. The final step is to nurture ourselves with compassion. This involves offering kindness and care to the parts of ourselves that are hurting. Nurturing can take many forms, such as comforting words, a gentle touch, or a compassionate presence. By practicing the RAIN method, we can break free from the trance of unworthiness and begin to experience life with a sense of openness and acceptance. Okay, so let me tell you my personal example here. Last week, I was at a professional soccer game with my teenage son. And each time I said something to him or asked him a question about the game, I was met with what my brain would call dismissive hostility. It was like non-answers, not answering at all, giving me like a one-word answer, all very short and sharp and with a tone. And he finally said, I don't want to talk right now. Don't talk to me. Now, my automatic response to this kind of behavior is anger. He was being rude, disrespectful, and ungrateful. I hadn't done anything to deserve this kind of treatment, and he's acting like he's mad at me for something when I had done nothing. I paid thousands of dollars for these season tickets because he loves soccer, not me. And this is how he treats me? I shouldn't have bought these season tickets. It's not enjoyable spending time with him when he's like this, and it's not strengthening our relationship anyway, which is the entire point. What a waste. Okay, that's what sounded like in my brain, my automatic response. Now, in the past, I would have voiced some of this to him. I would have lectured him, like reacted to my anger. I would have lashed out and I would have hurt our relationship. And the whole reason I go to these games with him is because I want to have a great relationship with him. I want to strengthen that relationship. Now, but because I practice what I teach, I didn't do any of those things. I just hit pause. Now, hitting pause, I'm sure it's something you've heard me talk about before. It's so important. And Tara talks about it in this book also. You just hit pause on the moment. You don't react to what you're feeling. You don't react to all those thoughts, the ones I just told you going through my brain. You just hit pause, just like you're watching a movie. Just hit the pause button. Okay. R is for recognize. I recognized that I was feeling some strong emotions. Anger was the easiest to identify, followed by regret. You can hear both of those in all those thoughts that I just read you, right? But there was something else underneath. And I know that about myself. Usually when I feel anything in the anger family, so anger, irritation, annoyed, frustrated, anything in that family of emotions, there is generally something underneath. That's just how I roll. I knew there was something, and I could figure out, like, as I paid attention, I was like, oh, it's hurt. But why do I feel hurt? He was acting like a typical teenager. This is like developmentally appropriate behavior. But why did it bother me so much? Okay. A is for allow. I let myself feel all these emotions. I let myself feel angry. I let myself feel regret. I let myself feel hurt without reacting to them. I just quietly watched the game while I paid attention to myself and what it felt like in my body. I is for investigate. Doing this allowed me to get curious about what was underneath. Only 5% of our thinking is conscious. 95% is subconscious. And for me, that means I'm usually hiding the root cause of any of my problems from myself, buried deep in my subconscious. Now, here are some of the thoughts I uncovered through this investigation. I'm a bad mom. I'm failing at motherhood. I am doing a bad job. We don't have a good relationship. He can't stand being around me. My own kid doesn't even like me. I'm not enough. There is something fundamentally wrong with me. I'm unlovable. Now, as I talked about before, I don't walk around thinking these things consciously. Like, I'm not like full of negativity all the time. I'm a pretty positive person, actually. I wouldn't describe myself as someone who has a lot of negative self-talk. And yet there it is, right under the surface, beneath my conscious awareness, the trance of unworthiness. Now, just because I'm not conscious of it and I'm not paying attention to it, doesn't mean it's not affecting me. It's affecting me all the time. It shows up in my emotions. It shows up in my behavior. It affects all the results I'm able to create in my life, whether I pay attention to it or not. So we want to go into our subconscious and pull those things up into our conscious awareness, like I just did. That's what we do when we investigate. Okay. Now, N is for nurture. Once I uncovered the source, it made sense why I was upset. But none of these sentences I just told you, none of them are true. He is a teenager showing typical teenager behavior. Being a teenager is hard. He could be struggling with any number of things that he doesn't want to talk to his mom about. That's normal. He could also be just simply riding a hormone wave. Also normal. His behavior means none of these things about me. It doesn't mean I'm a bad mom. It doesn't mean I'm doing a bad job. It doesn't mean we don't have a good relationship. It doesn't mean he can't stand to be around me. I reminded myself of all of this and also of what a great mom I actually am. And I nurtured that part of me, that little girl who still doesn't think she's good enough. And I told her how awesome she is. And I told her she's doing a good job. And this just wasn't about me. Now, that's the whole RAIN method. Notice I just did the RAIN. Next time I find myself in a similar scenario with one of my teenagers, which I totally will, I will know what to look for. I will be able to go through this process so much faster because I have more clarity and awareness of what's going on for me. And I will know it's not about my kids or their behavior. This will help me love them as they are, accept reality as it is, and show up as the mom I want to be, and enjoy the present moment without anything or anyone else needing to be different. This is freedom. This is what we talk about on this podcast. Now, here's a little side note. I occasionally get some pushback about cherishing yourself as one of my pillars because so many of us have been programmed to see this as selfish. We're supposed to love and focus on others, not ourselves, right? Now, this story is a great illustration of how cherishing myself helps me love others. When I don't love or accept myself, when I am in the trance of unworthiness, my automatic response is to lash out. I judge my son. I don't accept him as he is, and I don't treat him the way I want to treat him. When I am able to cherish myself, the opposite is true. By focusing on myself and choosing to cherish and accept who I am, I'm able to love others at a much higher level. I didn't say a single word to my son about his behavior. I didn't, and I didn't need to. He's just struggling with something. It's fine. I was able to love him as he is unconditionally, even though he's doing things that my brain maybe doesn't think is the best behavior. Cherishing yourself is the foundation. It is what enables you to love others the way you want to. So let's talk about embracing radical acceptance. Radical acceptance is all about fully embracing our lives as they are without resistance or denial. It involves accepting both our strengths and our weaknesses, our joys and our sorrows. This acceptance is not about complacency or resignation. Rather, it is about seeing reality clearly and responding with compassion and wisdom. The power of self-acceptance comes in our healing and our growth. When we accept ourselves fully, we create a foundation for healing. Self-acceptance allows us to let go of the constant struggle to be different and to start loving ourselves and our lives as they are. Radical acceptance does not mean we stop striving for growth and improvement. Instead, it means we approach growth from a place of self-love rather than self-criticism. So here are the practices for radical acceptance that Tara talks about in the book. The first one is meditation. Brach suggests meditation as a powerful tool for cultivating radical acceptance. Through meditation, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. And again, if you're reading it, remember what I said about meditation. It's simply paying attention to yourself. We don't have to make it some big woo-woo thing. We don't have to make it a hippie thing. We don't have to make it anything. It's just going inside and paying attention to yourself. Number 2, loving kindness. Loving kindness meditation involves sending feelings of love and compassion to ourselves and others. This practice helps to soften the heart and build a sense of connection and acceptance. Number 3 is journaling. Writing about our experiences and emotions can be a therapeutic way to process and accept our reality. Journaling allows us to explore our inner world with honesty and compassion. Now, I have added a fourth one. Brach does not mention this, but I'm throwing it in here because I know how important it is, and that is coaching. This can be difficult work to do on your own if you haven't done this kind of thing before. I was able to find all of my subconscious thoughts because I have had a lot of training and a ridiculous amount of practice helping myself and my clients. I could not have done what I just told you I did at that game a few years ago. I could not have done it for myself because I didn't know how yet. Having an experienced coach to help you with this is priceless. So if you don't have one, get one. Obviously, again, I'm a good choice. But if it's not me, please go find a coach to help you with this work because it is so fundamental to your happiness and to living a fulfilling life. When we practice radical acceptance, we open the door to a life filled with greater joy and fulfillment. By accepting ourselves and our reality, we free ourselves from the constant pressure to be different or better. This freedom allows us to live more fully and authentically. And that helps us to experience more joy and fulfillment. And we do this through presence. Radical acceptance brings us into the present moment where true joy and fulfillment are found. When we are not caught up in the regrets about the past or worries about the future, we can fully enjoy the richness of each moment. It also does it through connection. Acceptance of ourselves fosters deep connections with others. When we are not constantly judging ourselves, we are more open and compassionate towards others, leading to more fulfilling relationships. And it also helps with empowerment. By accepting our reality, we become empowered to make positive changes. Acceptance is the first step towards meaningful action. When we see things clearly, we can respond with wisdom and effectiveness. The journey to higher levels of joy and fulfillment is going to require consistency, patience, and support. This journey is not a linear path. It involves ongoing practice and a commitment to self-compassion. Along the way, there will be challenges and setbacks, but each step brings us closer to a life of greater joy and fulfillment. So, like any new habit, consistency is key. Make a commitment to practice mindfulness and self compassion regularly. Be patient with yourself as you navigate this journey. Healing and transformation take time, and it's important you honor your own pace. And seek support from others who are on a similar path, whether through a meditation group, a coach, a therapist, a supportive friend. Having a community can make the journey easier. And don't forget to celebrate your progress. Acknowledge your small wins. It doesn't matter how big it is, each step towards self acceptance is a victory. Regularly reflect on how far you've come. Notice the shifts in your mindset and the positive changes in your life, and make joy a priority. Okay, here are some of my favorite quotes from Radical Acceptance. And as I read them, you're going to know, oh, I know that's why Mindy likes this one. So here we go. Number one. Radical acceptance is the willingness to experience our life as it is rather than how we want it to be. 2, the boundary to what we can accept is the boundary to our freedom. So good, right? Number 3, perhaps the biggest tragedy of our lives is that freedom is possible, yet we can pass our years trapped in the same old patterns. This is so true for so many of you. Come and join my Live Free, Love Live membership and make sure that that is not you. Freedom is possible. And too many of us just pass our years in that same old pattern, exactly as she said. Now you can see why I still like this book. Like, it's not my favorite book. I have some problems. And also, it's like sentences like that I'm like, oh, yes, it's so good. Okay, number 4. Radical is derived from the Latin word radix, meaning going to the root or origin. Radical acceptance enables us to turn to the root or origin of who we are, to the source of our being. I don't know if you listened to the I Am podcast a few weeks ago. It's revealing the David in the rock. It's revealing who we really are. That is the work that we do, is to become more of who we are. So I love that. Number 5, we cannot be more sensitive to pleasure without being more sensitive to pain. So if we want more pleasure, we have to accept that that means more pain. So good. 6, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. One of the keys of the things that I teach. So good. 7, you are not your thoughts. You are aware of your thoughts. 8, only when we are kind to ourselves can we be truly kind to others. Number 9, the way out of our cage, because we're all about learning how to break free. The way out of our cage begins with accepting absolutely everything about ourselves and our lives by embracing with wakefulness and care our moment-to-moment experience. Number 10, compassion begins with acceptance, and acceptance involves letting go of resistance and judgment. Number 11, when we accept what is happening now, we can be curious about what might happen next. It's why acceptance is like so key in moving forward. So good. Number 12, forgiveness is a way of letting go of pain and suffering that we carry. If you've listened to my forgiveness episode, exactly that. I love it. 13, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. So true, you guys. It's so true. 14, the healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy. Number 15, the moment we accept our pain, we are free to move through it. So true. 16, the greatest obstacle to inner peace is the belief that something is wrong with us. I see this so often coaching my clients. It's so true. I know I keep saying that, but these are good quotes. And number 17, each time you turn toward the sense of lack, judgment, hurt, or fear with the intention to simply be aware of it, you are already on the path of radical acceptance. I love it. All right. I often leave you with some questions to consider. So what I decided to do in this episode is to give you Tara's questions straight from the book. These are questions to recognize the trance of unworthiness. So for those of you that you're like, "Yeah, I don't really think bad things about myself. I think I'm pretty awesome." Just listen to these questions as I read them and just see if there is anything that you might could up level that you could be better at. Do I accept my body as it is? Do I blame myself when I get sick? Do I feel that I'm not attractive enough? Am I unsatisfied with how my hair looks? Am I embarrassed by how my face and body are aging? Do I judge myself for being too heavy, underweight, not physically fit? Do I accept my mind as it is? Do I judge myself for not being intelligent enough, humorous enough, interesting enough? Am I critical of myself for having obsessive thoughts, for having a repetitive, boring mind? Am I ashamed of myself for having bad thoughts, mean thoughts, judgmental thoughts, lusty thoughts? Do I consider myself a bad meditator because my mind is so busy? Do I accept my emotions and moods as they are? Is it okay for me to cry, to feel insecure, vulnerable? Do I condemn myself for getting depressed or anxious? Am I ashamed of feeling jealous? Am I critical of myself for being impatient, irritable, intolerant? Do I feel that my anger or anxiety is a sign that I'm not progressing on the spiritual path? Do I feel that I'm a bad person because of the ways that I behave? Do I hate myself when I act in a self-centered or hurtful way? Am I ashamed of my outbursts of anger? Do I feel disgusted with myself when I eat compulsively, when I smoke cigarettes, or drink too much alcohol? Do I feel that because I am selfish and often don't put others first, that I'm not spiritually evolved? Do I feel as if I'm always falling short in the way that I relate to my family and friends? Do I feel that something is wrong with me because I'm not capable of intimacy? Am I down on myself for not accomplishing enough, for not standing out or being special in my work? And then one last question. Those questions were good, right? One more question that's not about the trance of unworthiness, just as the group, the book of as a whole. What would it be like if I could accept life and myself, accept this moment exactly as it is? In conclusion, Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach offers a powerful framework for breaking free from what holds us back and embracing a life of joy and fulfillment. By cultivating mindfulness and self-compassion, we can transform our relationship with ourselves and our reality. Through the practice of radical acceptance, we learn to see ourselves and our lives with greater clarity and kindness. This practice empowers us to become the architects of our own well-being, unlocking new levels of vitality and joy. As we embrace ourselves fully, we open the door to a life that is not only worth living, but deeply fulfilling. So take a deep breath, embrace your life with open arms, and embark on the journey to a radical acceptance. Your path to greater joy and fulfillment awaits. And of course, if you liked any of this, go read the book and you'll get all of those sentences that I was talking about. The way she explains it might be the very thing that hits your brain in the exact way that you need to hear it. Live free, love life. Thank you for watching this episode of Live Free, Love Life. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, comment, and share. See you next time.